The last thing Sam Miller expected when his girlfriend licked the tip of his nose was to be ambushed by the single most terrifying sentence in the known galaxy. He was reclined on their worn-out synth-leather sofa, a datapad resting on his chest, its schematics for a Series 8 freighter exhaust manifold utterly forgotten. Naira was curled up on top of him, a warm, purring weight of pure affection. Her head was tucked just under his chin, the ridiculously soft tufts of her ears tickling his jaw. The low, thrumming rumble vibrated through his sternum, a familiar, grounding frequency that meant contentment, safety, home. It was their perfect, comfortable normal, a quiet eddy in the chaotic currents of Port Chimera. Their apartment was a testament to this normal. It wasn't large, just a standard habitation unit on deck Gamma 9. But it was theirs. His collection of antique human screwdrivers, mounted on the wall like trophies, sat opposite a sleek Fellini claw sharpening post of woven moonvine. The air carried a faint fusion of engine solvent and her spicy guitar tea. His heavy, steel-toed work boots were by the door next to her lightweight pilot slippers. Their life was a collage of mismatched pieces that fit together perfectly. He ran a hand down her neck, feeling the sleek muscle beneath her short, sand-colored fur, and the twitch of her long tail, which was wrapped securely around his calf. She shifted then, the purring engine in her chest cutting out with a suddenness that put his senses on high alert. Propping herself up on her forearms, she looked him directly in the eyes. Her own pupils, vertical slits set in a pool of vivid emerald green, were wide and deadly serious. The playful mischief that usually danced in them was gone. "Sam?" she said, her voice an uncharacteristically solemn melody. "Nee," he replied, using his pet name for her. "Everything okay? You feel tense." He was a mechanic. He noticed things like that. A change in vibration, a subtle shift in tension. She took a deep breath, her chest rising and falling against his. Her expression was a paradox. Fierce pride, mixed with the energy of a prank about to be unleashed. "You should prepare, human," she declared, her tone ringing with finality. "We're having kittens." Sam's brain, a place of logic, diagnostics, and torque specifications, suffered a catastrophic core meltdown. He stared at her, his mouth slightly agape, while his mind conjured a flood of absurd images. A cardboard box filled with mewling creatures, him attempting to herd them with a frayed piece of string. He'd heard other Fellini use the term kits before. It had always been an abstract concept, a piece of cultural trivia. Hearing it from Nira, about them, the word suddenly had weight, and claws, and apparently came in plural. "Kittens?" he managed, his voice a pathetic squeak. "Like actual four-pod, chase the glowing dot, kittens." Nira's severe expression shattered, and a cascade of chirping, bell-like laughter erupted from her, shaking his chest. "Oh, you are a ridiculous soft-pod male," she giggled, warming the cold dread in his veins. She took his large, grease-stained hand and guided it from her back down to her stomach. She pressed it flat against the firm warmth of her abdomen. "Plural, yes, but a bit more like you and me, I hope." He felt it then. Beneath the sleek muscle, there was a new firmness, a presence. It was the undeniable feeling of life. A wave of awe washed away the fragments of his panic. He looked from her belly back to her brilliant, hopeful smile, and the dumbfounded terror on his own face slowly melted away, replaced by a wide, stupid, ear-to-ear grin. "Oh," he breathed, the sound full of wonder. "Kittens." She said, and I quote, "We're having kittens." Sam stared into his calf mug as if it held the schematics for a new life. It just held lukewarm sludge that tasted faintly of burnt plastic. Plural! Across the grimy workbench, Mara di Akar Singh paused, a hydro spanner held aloft in one of her 4 slender hands. She tilted her head, a construct of smooth, dark plates, so her mosaic-like eyes caught the flickering strip lights. The lights had been flickering for 3 weeks, a symptom of the station's unreliable power grid upgrade. Kittens, Mara repeated, her mandibles clicking in her species' equivalent of a delighted grin. Plural. Oh, this is magnificent. Magnificent? It's terrifying, Sam said, though a dopey grin hadn't quite left his face. He felt disconnected, like he'd spent a double shift on 0G without his maglocks engaged. Terrifying? Sam, it's biology. Messy, inefficient, gloriously squishy biology. It's a gold mine of interspecies anthropological data. Mara set the spanner down and leaned forward. From a purely scientific standpoint, what's the expected litter size? Fellaini typically bear 2 to 4. Humans usually 1. Does your comparatively mundane DNA act as a moderating agent on her fecundity? Or does her biology simply overwhelm your quaint singularity? Does the gestation period average out between your 9 months and her 6? And what about... Mara, Sam interrupted, holding up a hand. I found out yesterday. My brain is still trying to process the word kittens without picturing a ball of yarn. Right. Priorities. Mara nodded, a gesture she'd picked up from humans. First, elation. Second, logistics-induced panic. Third, obsessive planning. Her mosaic eyes sparkled. But most importantly, she tapped her forearm datapad. A holographic betting slip, decorated with animated kittens, shimmered into existence. Miller's hybrid progeny states. We'll open up a pool. Sam groaned. You are not starting a betting pool on my unborn children. Of course I am. It's a celebration, a vital component of community engagement. Think of it as a preemptive college fund. First pot is number of kits. I'll set the over-under at 1.5. Then gender, fur to skin ratio, tail length. No. Presence of father's ridiculous cowlick? She chirped, her vocalizer mimicking human teasing. Absolutely not. Fine. Mara waved a dismissive hand, but the betting slip remained. Before we get to the fun part, though, tell me this. Her usual analytical tone softened. Are you happy? Sam looked down at his big, calloused hands. They knew how to fix hyperdrives and patch hull breaches, but he had no idea how to hold a baby, especially one that might have a tail. The terror was still a cold gear in his gut, but beneath it was that same giddy, floating awe from the night before. He looked up at his friend. The silly grin returned. Yeah, he said, his voice thick. Mara, I'm over the moon. Both of them. Good, she said, her mandibles clicking softly. Because you're a good man, Sam Miller. You'll be a great... what's the Fellaini word for dad? I have no idea, Sam admitted, but I have a feeling I'm about to learn. He took a sip of his caf. It was cold. He didn't care. The craving hit at 0300 ship time. Nira shot upright in bed, a low growl in her chest, her eyes wide in the dim glow from the viewport. Sam, she whispered, her voice tight. Sam, wake up. He was beside her in an instant. What is it? Are you okay? Is it time? No, you fool, she hissed, her hand clutching his arm with desperate strength. It's the paste. I need the paste, the salty kind, from cats. And the crunchy circles. Sam's sleep-fogged brain struggled to assemble the data. Paste? Crunchy circles? Churka's fish paste, she said, as if it were the most obvious substance in the universe. And what's your terrible human food? The sugary grain hoops? Those! Pungent fish paste and sugary grain hoops. Sam's stomach flipped, but one look at the feral gleam in Nira's eyes told him this was not a negotiation. It was a mission-critical objective. Okay, he said, swinging his legs out of bed. Fish paste, grain hoops. I'm on it. His journey took him deep into the lower levels of Port Chimera, to the sector unofficially known as Cat Town. The air here grew thick with the scents of dried fish, exotic spices, and high-grade catnip. He found Cat's curios and necessities, a small, cluttered hole in the wall, its window piled high with dusty jars and bags of dried creature parts. Inside, an ancient, grizzled Fellini with a notched ear sat on a stool, meticulously grooming a whisker. Sam stepped inside, a chime announcing his presence. Old Cat looked up, his gaze sweeping over Sam with dismissive contempt. Sam held up his personal comm unit, whose notoriously literal translation app Mara relentlessly mocked. Hello, Sam said into the device. I need Churka fish paste? The comm buzzed and emitted a flat, robotic voice in stilted Fellini. Cat's lip curled in a sneer. He responded with a series of low growls and guttural clicks. Sam's comm whirred and offered its wisdom. Insolent hatchling, you wish to acquire the tears of the sorrowful moonfish? For what purpose does a clumsy, clawless one require such an honor? Sam blinked. Moonfish's tears? It's for my girlfriend, he said slowly into the comm. She is with child? She's expecting? Cat listened to the garbled output, then let out a short, sharp hiss that was undeniably a laugh. He replied at length, gesturing with a gnarled claw at an ornate jar on a high, dusty shelf. The translator did its best. The sky womb must be placated by the ghost song of the ancient ocean. First, you must bow to the sacred jar. Then, you must spin counterclockwise 3 times while humming the lament of the shallow tide. Do not, under any circumstances, make direct eye contact with the paste itself. Sam stared at the comm, then at the mocking shopkeeper. This was insane. Cat was hazing the human who dared to mate with one of his kind. Sam could play that game. He was a mechanic. He understood systems. He switched off the comm. He looked Cat directly in the eye, ignoring the low growl it elicited. Then, with slow movements, he pointed to his own stomach and made a gentle, cradling motion with his arms. He looked back at Cat, held his gaze, then pointed a determined finger at the jar. Not a plea, but a statement of unvarnished fact. I am here for that. I am not leaving without it. Cat's sour expression faltered. The mockery in his eyes was replaced by a flicker of something else. Respect? Annoyance? With a weary, theatrical sigh, he heaved himself off the stool. He grabbed a clay pot and used a long, hooked pole to retrieve the jar. He scooped a dollop of the pungent paste into the pot. Then he paused. He took a smaller spoon and, with a practiced hand, traced a simple, looping symbol onto the surface. A blessing. He pushed the pot across the counter. No spinning, no humming. Just a transaction, completed with a sliver of unexpected grace. Sam paid, offering a short, respectful nod, which the old Fellini pointedly ignored. On his way out, he passed a small, open-air cafe. A young Fellini sat at a table. As Sam watched, the male leaned in and gave the female a soft, deliberate lick across her cheekbone. It was slow and reverent. The female closed her eyes, a deep purr rumbling in her chest. It was a gesture of profound intimacy. Back in the apartment, Nira devoured the fish paste and cereal with an expression of blissful, near-religious ecstasy. "It was weird down there," Sam said, sitting on the bed. "The shopkeeper, Cat, he tried to get me to sing to the jar." Nira laughed, her mouth full. "He does that to all the off-worlders. He must like you, though. He gave you the blessing of the First Mother." She pointed a claw at the symbol in the pot. "He only does that if he thinks the kits will be strong." "Oh," Sam said. He thought of the cafe. "I also saw a couple. He licked her face." Nira stopped eating. She put the pot down and looked at him, her expression softening. "He did?" "Yeah. It seemed important." "It is," she said quietly. "When my father did that for my mother, it was like he was wrapping the whole sky around her. It says, 'You are my litter. You are my life. I am your safe harbor.' We only do it for our mates. Our true mates. And our kits." Sam looked at her, at the smear of paste on her chin. He was navigating a world of moonfish tears and sacred licks. He was learning. He reached out and gently, with his thumb, wiped the paste from her chin. Her purr started up again, a low rumble that filled the quiet room with peace. The interspecies obstetrics clinic on deck Alpha 2 was a world away from the grit of the workshop. The air was sterile, the light a soft, bioluminescent blue. The tech was cutting edge. Sam, a man who spent his days with scorched metal, felt like a wrench in a clean room. Dr. Zelen, a calm, reptilian labyrinthian with kind, slow-blinking eyes, gestured a scaly hand toward the holographic display. "Well, there they are," he said, his voice a dry, reassuring rustle. "Two distinct gestational sacs, both healthy. Congratulations. You're having twins." Sam stared at the two fuzzy, glowing shapes. Twins. His heart felt like it was trying to achieve orbit. He squeezed Nira's hand. "And look," Dr. Zelen added, zooming the image. "You can just make out the caudal vertebrae formation. They're gonna have tails." "Tails," Sam breathed. His kids were going to have tails. "Everything looks perfect," the doctor continued. "Vital signs are strong. Growth is on schedule." He paused, tapping his console. "However, there is a small complication. Nothing to be alarmed about, but something to be prepared for." Sam's grip tightened. The smooth-running engine of the appointment had just developed a knock. "Complication?" "Their biological clocks are not synchronized," Dr. Zelen explained, pointing to two distinct wave patterns on a chart. "This one is developing on a standard human diurnal cycle, and this one is on a classic Fellini nocturnal one. After they are born, this'll be challenging." The doctor's third eyelid blinked slowly. "One will be wide awake, just as the other is settling down. Your household will, for a time, be operating on a 24-hour cycle." Sam imagined it, a never-ending tag-team cycle of screaming, feeding, and changing. The joy in his chest was now fused with a healthy dose of logistical dread. "We can manage that," Nira said, her voice full of a confidence Sam desperately wanted to borrow. "We'll run shifts." "I have no doubt," Dr. Zelen said, with a warm, rustling smile. "Now, let's go over the trimesters. We'll follow the Fellini model as it's more accelerated. You're in the first, sensory development. The kits are developing their hearing, smell, whiskers. The second is motor development. That's when you'll feel a move. A lot. They'll be testing their claws, their balance, their grip. And the third is nesting. Your instincts, Mother, will be to prepare a safe, warm, enclosed space. Sensory, motor, nesting. It sounded so simple, so structured. Sam, the mechanic, clung to the logic of it. A process. A 3-stage assembly. He could handle a process. The central theme of the next few months became the nursery project. It began with clearing out the spare room and snowballed into the single most complex engineering challenge of Sam's life. It was to be their grand project for the second trimester. The official data pamphlet from the Bureau of Interspecies Family Services arrived titled, A Practical Guide to Hybrid Offspring, Feline Human Edition. Okay, Section 1, Feline Infant Care. Sam read from the datapad. The feline nesting instinct requires a primary sleeping domicile, a crib, to be elevated, enclosed, and possess a sound-dampening, per-resonant lining. He looked at Nira. Per-resonant lining? What's the frequency on that? Nira giggled. You're such a mechanic. It just means soft, like a mother's chest. Noted, Sam said, swiping the page. Note on grooming. A mother's instinct to lick offspring clean is vital. Human partners are encouraged to participate using a warm, damp cloth. Use of the tongue by the human parent is culturally inappropriate. Bureaucratic spoil sports, Nira muttered. Right? Sam deadpanned. He scrolled down. Warning. Feline infants possess retractable claws from birth. It is recommended all surfaces within the nesting area be made of claw-proof or self-healing polymer. He looked at the bare walls. That's a lot of polymer. They switched to the human section, and it was Nira's turn to be baffled. Warning. Offspring may cry for no discernible reason? She read, her ears twitching. This is considered normal. The parent's role is to offer comfort, even when the source of distress is unknowable. She looked at Sam, bewildered. It cries for no reason? That's a diagnostic nightmare. How do you fix it if you don't know what's broken? Welcome to human parenting, Sam said with a helpless shrug. Inefficient, she muttered, and kept reading. Nursery safety protocols. All electrical outlets must be covered. All furniture must be anchored. All sharp corners must be padded. She looked up. You wrap your world in pillows for them? We call it being careful, Sam said. A Feline would call it an obstacle course, she countered. The pamphlet, instead of providing a clear blueprint, had given them 2 different sets of schematics. The nursery project was already more complicated than he'd thought. Sam felt a gnawing need to contribute something concrete, something mechanical. Parenting had to have a system. He downloaded a classic human parenting ebook, The Human Method, Predictable Schedules for a Peaceful Home. He entered the nursery, where Nira was sniffing the wall. Thinking about the scent marking, she said absently. A little chirca paste in the corners will make the room smell like home. Sam's stomach churned. Right. Well, I was reading this, he said, holding up his datapad. It's about creating routines, like schedule feeding. Nira turned, her full attention on him. Scheduled? Yeah, he explained earnestly. You feed the baby every 3 hours, on the dot. Their metabolism regulates, they learn to anticipate meals, and they don't cry manipulatively. It creates order. Nira listened patiently. When he finished, she was silent for a long moment. Then a low rumble started in her chest, bursting out as a stream of delighted, disbelieving laughter. Oh, Sam, she finally gasped, wiping a tear of mirth from her eye. You and your... your order. His confidence deflated. What? It's efficient. My love, she said, taking the datapad from his hands. To a Feline, there is only one schedule. It is called, I am hungry. Denying a hungry kitten food is not teaching them order. Her voice grew serious. It is teaching them that their parent is a liar. It is a fundamental betrayal. She cupped his face in her hands. Would you ignore a critical warning light on an engine panel, Sam? A hungry kit is a warning light. We feed when they are hungry. We comfort when they are sad. The only schedule is need. He looked at the unshakable certainty in her eyes. His beautiful, logical solution had just crashed and burned against a wall of primal instinct. He felt a now familiar sting of inadequacy. Oh, he said quietly. Right. Warning light. It's a good thought, she said, her voice softening. It shows you are trying to build the nest with me. But you cannot build a Feline nest with only human tools. She leaned in and kissed him. We will use my instincts and your steadiness. That will be our schedule. He nodded, forcing a smile. It wasn't a fight. It was a lesson. The second trimester brought movement. Flutters became jabs, which became what felt like full-on acrobatic tumbles. It also brought meddling from Nira's homeworld. The flickering, life-sized holograms of Jik and Farah Takash materialized in their living room. Jik, Nira's brother, was boisterous. Her sister Farah was reserved, her sharp eyes missing nothing. They immediately began their inspection. "Little sister!" Jik boomed. "You are getting plump. But this nesting chamber..." He gestured dismissively. "It is cold, sterile. The soul of a cargo bay." "We're still working on it, Jik," Nira said, her tail starting an irritated lash. Farah's gaze fixed on Sam, who stood nervously with his translator. "Is he feeding you properly? You need rich meats and moon kelp for strong claws." "He feeds me very well," Nira said, her tone a low warning. Jik leaned closer. "We're sending you a proper expulsion domicile, woven from whisper willow, lined with mountain grok fur. Much better than whatever flat, hard human box he'll build." The insult was clear. Sam's jaw tightened. Farah cut in again, colder this time. "And another thing. We have contacts in the Port Chimera administration. If we feel he is not providing a proper Feline environment, we will register a formal complaint with the Bureau of Interspecies Family Services. We will not see our bloodline weakened." That was the last straw. "Enough!" Nira snapped, her voice cracking like a plasma whip. "I did not ask for your opinion. Sam is a fine mate. He is patient and kind, and he is a builder. Our nest will be safe and warm because we will build it together. We don't need you to send us anything but your love. If you cannot do that, then do not call again." She stabbed the disconnect button. The abrupt silence crackled. Nira slumped onto the sofa, trembling with rage. "I'm sorry," she said, not looking at him. "They threatened to report us to the government, Nee," Sam said, his voice flat. Another situation where he was a liability. She finally looked at him, her green eyes clouded. "It's not you they doubt," she admitted. "It's my choice. They think because I chose a human, I've chosen a weaker path, that our family won't be real. And their stupid, arrogant threats, they make me feel like I have to prove them wrong." He sat beside her and took her hand. "Hey, we don't have to prove anything to anyone. But for what it's worth, I'll build the best damn expulsion domicile this side of the galactic core. And it will have per-resonant lining." She managed a weak smile. "Just call it a crib, okay?" The Miller's hybrid progeny stakes took on a life of its own, appearing on public view screens in the mess hall. Cargo handlers argued about the odds. The bartender at the Stumble Inn offered him a free drink for inside info. One afternoon, Mara slid a datapad across the workbench. The pot total was a staggering figure. "It's officially a station-wide phenomenon," she announced. "But look at this." She pointed to a single, anonymous bet, a maximum wager that had sent the pot soaring. Wager 2. Healthy, full term. "Who do you think that was?" Sam asked. "No idea," Mara said. "Routed through a dozen ghost servers. But whoever it was, they're confident." Just then, Grorn, their hulking, four-armed Erkson supervisor, stomped into their work bay. "Miller, sing," he barked. "The coolant link on the freighter Azure Dream, it's not fixed. My diagnostics show you're still losing pressure." "We patched it, Grorn," Sam said. "Ran a full pressure test." "The test lies. The port's power grid is fluctuating again," Grorn grunted, pointed at the flickering light. "It's interfering with the sensors. Do it again. Manually." He stomped away. The unstable power grid was becoming more than an annoyance. It was a liability. The chime at their door was polite, firm, and filled Sam with dread. He opened it to find a severe-looking Vissian, a tall, avian bureaucrat. "Samuel Miller?" the Vissian cheeped. "I am Administrator Poven of the Bureau of Interspecies Family Services. We have received a formal expression of concern regarding your preparedness for hybrid offspring. I am here to conduct a mandatory wellness and readiness check." Sam's stomach plummeted. He glanced back at Nira, who stood behind him, her body rigid. Of course," Sam said, his voice a mask of calm. "Please, come in." Administrator Poven stepped into their living room, his dark eyes darting everywhere, judging. He was a well-meaning outsider, a box ticker who didn't understand the port's unwritten rules. "The concern," Poven began, consulting his datapad, "stems from the significant biological and cultural disparities between your species. It raises questions about your ability to provide a safe and nurturing environment." Nira bristled, but Sam put a calming hand on her arm. He caught her eye, a silent pact. "We're a team." "We understand the concerns, Administrator," Nira said, her voice strong, "and we have prepared for them." "Indeed. Your plans for the documented sleep cycle desynchronization?" "Staggered parenting shifts," Sam said immediately. "Nira's nocturnal. I'm diurnal. We have a support system for the overlap." Pavan made a note. "And physical development? Fellini infants have an innate need to climb. This dwelling is vertically deficient." Nira stepped forward, gesturing to a corner of the nursery. "Which is why we built this." Against the wall was a low, wide climbing structure, made of warm polymer, with a soft mat floor beneath it. A perfect fusion of their cultures. Her instinct to climb, his to make it safe. Pavan's feathery eyebrows rose slightly. "A novel solution. Custom built?" "I built it," Sam said simply. "And cultural integration. How will you honor both heritages?" It was Nira who answered, her voice ringing with conviction. "With respect, Administrator. They will learn the Fellini stories of the Star Chasers, and they will learn human lullabies. They will have a claw-sharpening post and a shelf of human books. Our family will not be Fellini or human. It will be ours, and it will be strong." Sam put his arm around her. They stood, a united front. Administrator Poven looked at them, at their chaotic but harmonious apartment, at their quiet confidence. He tapped his datapad. "Very well," he chirped, his tone thawing. "Your file will be updated to reflect a prepared and unified status. The concern is dismissed. My apologies for the intrusion." He gave a curt, bird-like nod and saw himself out. As the door closed, they let out a simultaneous sigh of relief. She turned and buried her face in his chest. "We did it," she murmured. "We did," he said, holding her tight. They had faced their first official test, and passed. The bookshelf incident happened a week later. Sam had just finished anchoring the last piece of furniture to the wall. "See? Perfectly safe," he declared. Nira surveyed his efforts, a playful glint in her eyes. "It's very grounded." "That's the point," he said proudly. "But you're still thinking like a human," she countered, pointing a claw at the tall bookshelf. "You see a cabinet that needs a lock. I see a ladder. Ours could probably climb that by 6 months. "No way," Sam scoffed. "Wanna bet?" Before he could answer, she took a running start and leaped. But her center of gravity had shifted. Her instincts were calibrated for a body that no longer existed. Her foot slipped. She scrambled, her claws scraping uselessly against the plasteel. The bookshelf wobbled. With a startled yelp, she found herself wedged between 2 shelves, her belly pressing uncomfortably against a hard edge. Sam?" she called out, a mixture of alarm and embarrassment. "A little help?" Panic shot through Sam, but he forced it down. Assess, stabilize. He hurried over, bracing the bookshelf and offering her a hand. "Don't move. I've got you." Gently, he helped her down. The moment she was free, she sagged against him, burying her face in his shoulder, trembling. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "That was so stupid." "No, it wasn't," he said softly. "You were proving a point. You were right." She looked up, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "My body doesn't feel like my own anymore," she confessed, her voice raw. "It doesn't do what I tell it to. It feels alien." It was the first crack in her confident facade. He pulled her into a tight hug, letting her just be held. "It's okay," he murmured. "It's just temporary." She clung to him, and he realized the nursery project wasn't just for the kits. It was for them, a space that could hold both his anxieties and her fears. He couldn't find her. The apartment was empty. A knot of cold dread tightened in Sam's gut. He raced to the hangar bay, his mind flashing through terrible possibilities. He found her in the cockpit of their small skyspeeder, the Stray. The engines were cold. She was just sitting in the pilot's seat, her hands on the flight yoke, her gaze fixed on the star-dusted blackness. He stopped himself from rushing in. This wasn't a problem he could fix with a wrench. This was a system he had to listen to. He opened the hatch quietly and slid into the co-pilot's seat. He didn't say a word, his presence a silent offer of support. Minutes stretched. Finally, she spoke, her voice a bare whisper. "I'm afraid I'm going to lose the sky, Sam." He looked at her profile in the faint nebula light. "When I'm up there," she continued, her gaze never leaving the stars, "it's just me and the ship and the dark. I'm not anyone's daughter or sister. I'm just a pilot. I'm free." She placed a hand on her swollen belly. "I'm afraid that when they come, that person will be gone. That I'll be grounded forever." Sam reached over and gently took her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. "You're not losing anything," he said, his voice low and steady. "You're just gaining a crew." He squeezed her hand. "And when they're old enough, you'll be the one to teach them how to fly. You'll take them up there and show them the nebula you love. You won't just be a pilot anymore. You'll be their captain. You won't lose the sky. You'll just have 2 new co-pilots to share it with. She turned to look at him, tears in her eyes. She didn't say anything. She just leaned her head against his shoulder, her tail curling around his leg, and they sat there, two pilots in a silent ship, navigating the vast, uncharted space of their shared future. The false alarm was a terrifying dress rehearsal, a sharp yelp, a frantic flight to the clinic, all ending in an anticlimactic, "It's just Braxton Hicks contractions." They returned home in a cloud of embarrassment and relief. But for Sam, the phantom panic lingered. "False alarm," he mumbled to Mara at the workshop the next day. "Happens to the best of us," she said, not looking up from a plasma torch. "No, it wasn't just that," Sam confessed, the words spilling out. "Mara, I was terrified. It was when I looked at her, and she was in pain. I had this awful realization." He took a shaky breath. "If something had been really wrong, I wouldn't have known what to do. I don't know her biology. I don't know what's a normal pain and what's a disaster. I can strip down a fusion core in the dark, but I can't even tell if the person I love is okay. My own ignorance, it makes me feel completely useless. A liability." His competence, the core of his identity, was meaningless here. A few nights later, Sam was woken by a touch. It was soft, deliberate, and wet. He opened his eyes to see Nira leaning over him, licking his face, a slow, gentle stroke from his cheekbone, across the bridge of his nose, to his jaw. He didn't need a translator or a manual. He knew exactly what it meant. "You are my litter. You are my life. I am your safe harbor." It cut through all the fear, all the inadequacy. It was a signal, a transfer of trust so profound it silenced every doubt. This was it. He sat up. "You okay?" he asked softly. She nodded, her eyes wide and calm. "I'm okay," she breathed. "It's time." The trip to the med bay was the opposite of their last one. Sam flew the speeder with a smooth, unhurried purpose. Nira sat beside him, breathing deeply, her hand on his. There was no panic, no fear, just a quiet, focused purpose. They were a team, a crew heading into the storm together. The delivery room was a quiet theater of focused urgency. Dr. Zelen moved with the calm of a master craftsman. Nira was a portrait of focused power, her hand gripping Sam's. Sam was her anchor, whispering encouragement, wiping her brow with a cool, damp cloth, a gesture that had become his own human version of a sacred lick. Then, the rhythm broke. The central biomonitor tracking the twins' vitals began to display bizarre, unreadable data. The clear waveforms of their heartbeats dissolved into a chaotic mess of static. "What is that?" Nira panted, her eyes wide with fear. The medical droid whirred. "Data unreadable. Pattern unrecognized." Dr. Zelen frowned. "It's not an equipment failure. Must be some kind of feedback from their hybrid biology. I've never seen a reading like this." Panic began to seep into the room. But Sam, looking at the chaotic data stream, saw something else. He saw a diagnostic chart. He saw a pattern. "It's harmonic resonance," he said, his voice cutting through the tension with the calm authority of a chief engineer. Dr. Zelen and Nira both turned to look at him. "What?" the doctor asked. "It's a resonance problem," Sam repeated, pointing at the screen. "Like an engine running on two different fuel mixtures. The vibrations are fighting each other, creating a feedback loop the sensors can't interpret. They're not in trouble, Doctor. They're just out of sync with each other, and with your machine." In that moment, Sam's human mind, trained to see patterns in machinery, had deciphered a biological puzzle that had stumped advanced medical science. Dr. Zelen stared at the screen, then at Sam, his eyes widening in comprehension. "Of course. The desynchronized cycles. Makes perfect sense. His worry was replaced by respect. He's right. Ignore the monitor. We proceed on maternal vitals. The crisis was averted. And then, the lights flickered and died, plunging the room into a dim red of emergency power. The steady beep of Nira's monitor went silent. "Station-wide power surge!" Dr. Zelen snapped. "I've lost her vitals." This time it was an equipment failure, but Sam was already moving. "It's the main power converter," he said. He was already at the back of Nira's biobed, his multi-tool in hand. He popped the access panel. Inside, a small chip was smoking. "Can you fix it?" Dr. Zelen demanded. "I can bypass it," Sam said. His hands moved with hypnotic speed and purpose. His pliers darted past a glowing capacitor, clamping onto the tiny copper filament of the secondary relay. He rerouted the connection. There was a spark, a hum, and the main lights flickered on. The monitor rebooted, and the steady, life-affirming beep of Nira's heartbeat filled the room. The entire procedure had taken less than 15 seconds. Sam stood back, heart pounding. He had faced 2 crises. One he had solved with his mind, the other with his hands. He was not useless. He was a mechanic. And he had just fixed the most important machine in the universe. The birth proceeded, and not long after, the quiet of the room was broken by 2 healthy, mewling, furious cries. They brought the twins home to an apartment that felt irrevocably new. As Sam carried Kaya through the door, he saw a large, awkwardly wrapped package. Beside it, Mara was leaning against the wall, a data chip in her hand. "Welcome home," she chirped. "I brought you a present." She held out the chip. "I cross-referenced Fellini and human infant sleep training methods and ran a 1,000,000-cycle simulation. This program outlines a hybrid schedule with a 92% probability of achieving 4 consecutive hours of sleep for the parental units by the 8th week. My masterpiece." She was Auntie Mara. "You're the best, Mara," Sam said, his voice thick with gratitude. "I know. Now, that other thing." She gestured to the box. "Arrived an hour ago. From your boss." Grorn? After Mara left, Sam opened the package. Inside was the high-end nursery air purifier they'd seen in a catalog, one they'd dismissed as ridiculously expensive. Attached was a simple note in blocky script. "My litter was 4, all born during a plasma storm on Deneb 9. The air scrubbers failed. The littlest one was sick for a year. This unit is better. Use it. G." Stunned, Sam looked at the purifier. It wasn't just a gift. It was a memory. A shared experience. Just then, Nira's comm chimed. A message from her family. Nira opened it, then turned the screen to him. It was a picture. An old holopic of 2 tiny Fellini kittens, Jik and Farah, asleep in a woven basket. Beneath it, a single line. "Welcome to the litter. We are proud." Tears welled in Nira's eyes. It was over. The judgment, the fear. They were accepted. Sam settled onto the sofa, Kaya's carrier on one side, Nico's on the other. Nira curled up next to him, her head on his shoulder. He looked at the expensive purifier, the data chip, the silent apology from a family light years away. He looked at Nira, at the 2 sleeping miracles in their bassinets. In his little corner of the galaxy, surrounded by his fierce pilot, his found family, and his 2 tiny, tailed babies, Sam Miller felt the full, wonderful weight of his new reality. He was tired, he was terrified, and he was the luckiest man alive. Nira shifted, and he felt her purr start up, a low, rumbling vibration against his side. Her tail curled around his leg in a possessive, contented embrace. He could feel her love in the steady rhythm of her purr, in the gentle weight of her head, in the warm, secure coil of her tail. He was home.